Assalamu alaikum students. This is Department of English, Government Postgraduate College Attock. Today we will have a discussion on John Ashbery's poem Melodic Trains. It is a postmodern poem, and we will see that how it is complex in relation to its thought and structure, and how it deals with some of the major issues that emerged in the later half of the 20th century. Melodic Trains is not a very easy poem to understand. So we would approach it thematically. We would discuss different concepts that in a way bind the poem together, though we cannot use this term bind for this poem, as the thoughts and the different kind of ideas in the poem, they seem to be so dispersed. We It is really very hard to follow one thread to understand the poem, or in other words, we cannot say that there is a unity of thought in the poem. It it is as if the poet, he is just going through his thought processes, his mental sequences, and he is not, this is not his purpose to give the poem a unified meaning. So, as the readers, as the students of literature, we should try to pin down the different dispersed thoughts of the poem and try to understand that what could be, if possible, what could be the unifying thread of the poem. So let us look at the text, the first two stanzas of the poem. It appears that the poet, he is sitting in a train, and there is a young girl who is just opposite, she is sitting on the opposite seat, and the poet is looking at her, and from there he starts narrating his thoughts. The poet says, a little girl with scarlet enameled fingernails asks me what time it is. Evidently, that's a toy wristwatch she is wearing for fun, and it is fun to wear other odd things like this briar pipe and tweed coat, like date-colored tiaras with the lines of seams sketched in and plunging now and then into unfathomable valleys that can't be deduced by the shape of the person sitting inside it, me, and just as our way in flat across dales and gulches, as though our train were a pencil guided by a ruler held against a photomural of the Alps. We both come to see distances as something unofficial and and impersonal, yet not without its curious justification, like the time of a stopped watch, right twice a day. Now, if we look at the lines, some some ideas that emerge in our minds, and that are highly relevant in relation to the study of postmodern thought and postmodern literature. First idea that comes to mind while reading these lines is the relativity of space and time. Um, this relativity, it is one of the main themes of postmodern literature. We will be coming towards its concept of relativity later, especially in relation to meaning and language. But this relativity, it was also inspired by some of the scientific theories that appeared in the first half of the 20th century. The most important of those theories that changed the perception of uh, humanity about many things was that of Einstein's concept of uh, space and time. Einstein, he presented his theory of relativity, and in that theory he questioned this concept that space and time are absolute entities. Now, since the time of Aristotle, it was believed that space and time are absolute. What do we mean by that? The absoluteness of space and time means that um, wherever one is, the concept of space and the concept of time would remain the same for all the observers. For example, for a person who is moving on a fast train, the space or distance is the same as for a person who is sitting on a bench on a railway platform. For both of them, the train is moving. Now, this concept was rejected by Einstein. He said that perception of space and time and distance, if we talk about space, it is also synonymous with distance. So the perception of distance, it is something which is relative. Relative means it varies from person to person. It is not absolute. It does not remain the same for all observers. And it is also a common observation. For example, if you are sitting inside a train and you look outside the window of your train, then you will see that how different objects are moving past the window at a very fast speed. Things would seem moving and disappearing from your sight when you look through the window of the train. So, from the objects, in relation to the objects that you can see outside the train is moving. But if you shift your gaze and look at the person who is sitting opposite you at the opposite seat, is that person moving in relation to your body? No, that person is not moving. If that person looks at you or you look at that person, you two would appear still in relation to each other. But in relation to the person who is outside standing on the railway platform, from the perspective of that person, you both are moving. This is what is the difference in perception, and this is the reason that Einstein he said that time, space or distance is a relative entity. Same is true in case of time, that time, according to Einstein, is not something that is absolute for all observers, but it varies from person to person. For example, for a person who is in space, uh, the movement of time would be slowed down as compared to a person who is on Earth. The reason is, according to Einstein, the closer you move towards the center of gravity, the time it is, you can say it moves faster. And if you move away from it, if you move um, to at a heighted place, or if you go to the space, then the movement of time would be slowed down. So a person who is in a spaceship, um, for him time would be slightly, means almost negligibly slowed as compared to a person who is on Earth. So Einstein also proved that time is something that is relative. It is not absolute. So in these lines, we will see that how the poet, he is talking about this uh, relativity of space and time, and he is also talking about a train, movement of a train, and the girl is sitting opposite him, and the different things, they are moving outside the train. Then there is also the question of identity. When the poet says that he is wearing a coat, and just like the girl opposite him, she is wearing uh, nail polish. He is also wearing a tweed coat. Now, one's appearance, or the way one dresses, or what style one wears, it is, in all cultures, it is usually associated with the concept of identity. That is, if you are a well-dressed man wearing a two-piece suit with the tie, then you are not just wearing a dress, but you are also making a statement. You are telling other people that what kind of person you are, or to what kind of class you belong. And in this way, the other persons, the people around him, they will also perceive him as a person belonging to some uh, some elite job or some elite business, something like that. And if there is a person who is clad in a very simple and not well kept kind of dress, then people will have a different kind of impression about him. So in these lines, we also see that the poet is commenting upon the question of identity, that how the way we dress, or the way we style our hair, or wear different kind of other articles on our body, we are basically making a statement. We are telling other people something, and that something is that I must be perceived as this kind of person. I must be perceived as this is my identity, and other people, they should form their opinion about me on the basis of this dress, or this appearance of mine. Then in the postmodern age, there was another important theory related with language and meaning, and that was presented by the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure. According to him, the relationship between signifier and signified is arbitrary. This is also, you can say, it is a kind of relative kind of thing. Um, Now, signifier is basically any written or spoken word, or the sound of it. It is called a signifier. For example, if it is a word identity, then identity is a signifier. while a signified is the concept which is related with this word, or you can, other words, you can say that the meaning of this. Now it was believed that there is an inherent connection between the word and its meaning, and this has been going on. I mean, people had been believing that for quite some time, since Aristotle's time. But Sayur, he rejected this concept. He put forward this idea that uh, the meaning and the word, or the signifier and signified, they are not connected with each other. In fact, their relationship is arbitrary. Arbitrary means that not based upon logic. It is just that somebody decided that we should call this particular object this, and all the other people, they agreed that yes, from now on we would call this object as this, and then the name, it got stuck, and now it has become the part of tradition. If you recall, I once gave you this example that when we are born, we do not have any name, and whatever name our parents would give us, then that name, and when our data would be entered in Nadra, for example, after that, uh, that name would be stuck with us, and we will always be identified throughout our lives by that name, even though in the beginning that name was not a kind of, you can say, uh, it was not essential for us. We could have been called by any name. So in this way, we also see that when the poet talks about all these concepts, that how he about the stopped watch and the way he perceives the movement of the train as a kind of ruler against the ellipse, it appears as if he is talking about this loose relationship between signifier and signified. So for him, the meaning of language, the meaning of words, or the meaning of concept, they are relative, just like space and time, and also just like identity. You cannot call them as logical. So we will see that how this poem, it moves forward, and how it brings in different question of identity and meaning and perception, and also the movement of our consciousness. If you look closely at the poem and the lines, you will see that they are so incoherent, but basically our thought processes are also incoherent. They do not have any logical connection, any cause and effect relationship. And if you analyze the way your mind works, the way our consciousness thinks, you will find that it is totally random. It moves from one image to another, from one thought to another, without having any kind of sequence, without having any kind of relationship. And this is the poem also seems to be a kind of representation of our consciousness, the randomness of our consciousness. And we will also be having a close look at this aspect of the poem too, that how it brings in a kind of randomness, a kind of fluidity of our conscious thoughts, our conscious thought processes, and how it comments, in a way it kinds of comments upon our thoughts and the way we perceive the world, and how our senses, they help us to form perceptions about the world. So in our next lecture, we will continue to discuss this poem. Till then, take care.